Cashomaniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
Well, welcome to the 294th episode of the GeoGearHeads. Daryl W4 is the host. I am Chris of the Northwest, and Daryl, we are closing in on our 300th episode.
We are, and we've got some exciting news that we'll tell you at the end of the show about the 300, which is coming up in just about 5 weeks. So make sure to stay tuned for that.
Rough math says that's about 6 years.
Oh, really? We have to wait 6 years?
No, that we've been doing this for about 6 years.
Yes, yeah, we're getting close. We're in our 6th year right now. So this is getting toward the end of the 6th year. Can you believe we've been doing this show for almost 6 full years now?
No, didn't we just drop the beta title a couple of episodes ago?
Well, actually, that was 242 shows ago.
Oh, the good old days.
How's that for quick math?
Wow, that was really good. I couldn't remember myself, but you seem to pull that right out.
Well, it was the first year was in beta. So 52 shows.
That's right. That's right.
And the 53rd show, we dropped the beta tag. So there we go. Anyway, getting back to the show tonight, we're going to be talking with Nick about Cashly. Well, actually about Cashly 3.0, since we've talked with Nick before. But Nick, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate
it. David in the chat room says he's a huge fan of Cashly and of Nick.
Oh,
so Nick, you've got a little bit of a fan base going there.
And who wouldn't be?
Android users?
Oh, maybe you got a point there.
Yeah.
I seem to recall that there are some Android users fairly upset with you over not bringing Cashly to Android.
There is, and they like to talk about it and tell me I'm missing out on a massive part of the market, which is probably true, but it's hard to, appease everybody.
Well, and yeah, you've got an app that's developed for a specific platform with a code base that isn't cross-compatible.
Correct.
And part of the problem is most of the apps that I've played with that are using any of those cross-platform tools really suck at performance, especially when you're getting into like the GPS. So yeah. I don't think that this is something that you'd really want to code that way.
Yeah, I would have had to start out that way, I think. Develop it, write that code all from the start.
And you're one developer.
Exactly.
You had someone else help out with graphics, if I recall.
Yeah, this was probably like 4 or 5 years ago. Had just paid a freelancer, a little bit of money to do the Cashly logo and stuff like that, and the kind of the green lines, and that's about it. So,
but aside from that, it's been pretty much just you from here on out, and of course, we have to credit all the beta testers.
That is definitely true. There's over the last couple of years, there's been over 100, probably about 150 different beta testers, and they've been absolutely crucial. So definitely, I appreciate them.
And they're also crucial for tempting me with upcoming features.
I don't know if tempting is the right word there, Daryl.
Taunting?
Teasing? Taunting?
Taunting? I was going to be nice.
Okay.
Yeah, many of them are features that I've actually sent in and been asking for, so they know that they can taunt me with them properly.
They're also making their phones crash often when we're messing around with different features and stuff like that, and they're having to test those and work out all the bugs before you get to try it.
That's okay. I play Pokemon Go, so I'm used to crashes.
Ouch.
Yeah. Sorry, I play Crashymon Go.
Crashymon Go.
There you go.
Touche.
Well, let's start with some of the new features. And the first one that we're going to talk about is actually new since 3.0 came out. And I don't even know what this feature really does. So tell us about the new FTF feature.
Yeah. So if you are just using Cashly in the Live tab, and you're loading up some caches wherever. If Cachely figures out that a cache you just loaded on the map is an FTF that hasn't been found, if it's not an event, if it's available, it'll put a little FTF badge on there. And then you can run on down there and then you can grab it and get an FTF. So it's a tool for finding FTFs. It's not to mark your previously found FTFs, which is, there was a little confusion when I was talking about it and then when I released it. So it's for finding them.
Availability of an FTF,
yes,
not marking the existing ones. But as I understand it, there's no way to really search for those while you're loading. So you can't say, show me all of the FTF opportunities.
No, that would be almost a little cheating, but no, it's not a search request that we can do with the API. It's just all processing after we've received those caches. So,
right. Well, and the thing that I used to like so much about, what was it? Was it called CacheBot? Was that the correct name, Chris?
There's an app called CacheBot.
Yeah, but that one used to have a feature where you could send the emails for the notifications to the phone, to their servers, and it would ping you. But they took that out, so now I don't even use the app anymore. But that was an awesome feature. So it's one of those things. Yeah, I'd love to see something like that come back. However, it's not something that you're going to get from anything in the API right now.
Yeah, that would be a little difficult. Now, I'm not sure why that app removed it. I don't know if it was a limitation or something changed on Groundspeak's end. I'm not sure. Yeah,
they claim that Groundspeak changed the emails and it couldn't be parsed anymore.
I see.
So yeah, nice feature for those FTF hounds, but you pretty much have to know that there's an FTF out there if you're going to go hit the FTF or get lucky and find it just, as you're out caching.
And using that feature, I was actually amazed how many FTFs there are that haven't been found for like a year, 2 years. I live close to the National Forest, so maybe it's just me, but there's a lot of them out there actually that I was surprised that nobody's found yet. So, and they're not just like puzzle caches. There's traditional.
I was going to say there's a lot of puzzles that haven't been found, but any traditional around here at least is gone within 24 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty typical.
Yeah. Well, and actually it's usually more like within a couple of hours, but sometimes, it's in a place that's not open, so they have to wait a little while.
There you go.
The next feature we're going to mention, though, is one that I've been yelling at you for a long time, and thank you for finally putting that in.
Yes, the bulk upload. Yeah, I think lots of people were yelling at me to add this.
Probably, because this is the one thing that was really causing me a lot of grief, especially at those events where you've got the GPX file that you load in of unpublished caches, because you can't upload those logs until the caches get published. So I was ending up with a lot of caches that I couldn't actually log, and then I had to go back in and manually send them. So now there's this bulk pending log upload feature.
Yeah, so that was a lot of testing, a lot of development, a lot of beta testing by my users, and yeah, it finally works well. Obviously, we have to abide by the API limitations. So if you have 500 logs to upload, after you do 30, you're going to have to sit there and wait for 60 seconds and then upload your 30 more. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. But yeah, it's a good tool. I use it myself, and a lot of users really love it.
Now, it does have the same kind of issues with unpublished caches, though. So I forget what happens. It just airs out, am I correct, when it hits one of those unpublished caches?
On the bulk upload, yeah.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think I've actually done too much testing with unpublished caches, so I need to try that.
Yeah, I know we were emailing a little bit shortly after 3.0 came out, because I had one of those events, and it did cause some issues because one of the caches was stuck in the reviewer queue for a couple of days while they fixed something. So the whole list of caches was just stuck there while I was waiting for that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna fix that feature soon, where you can actually uncheck some of them that you don't want to upload at that time. So there'll be like a checkbox on the side. So you can kind of pick and choose the bulk upload that you want to do. So that'll be coming down the road someday.
Nice.
Excellent. Most helpful features.
Yes.
Nice. Now, there's also a new feature for the current location heading indicator. Describe that.
Yeah, so apps like Google Maps and Apple Maps have done this for a long time. So you have your little location indicator, and then there's a little triangle sticking off of it, and it's basically showing which way you're pointing with your phone. So the tip of your phone, which way is that pointing, which is actually super helpful if your map is always orientated north, and then you can twist around and see, which way am I facing. So I was kind of just going off that, wanting to add that feature. And kind of almost replicate what the mapping apps are doing and just make it a little easier when you're out there caching. So,
and then you've added another one. Now, I've had to do this for a cache, is actually to project waypoints.
Yes. So that was another feature that people had been asking for a long time. And the math was complicated for it. And I just hadn't, worked on the interface or anything like that. But I finally did it in 3.0 and, flushed that out, and it's working pretty well.
I can only say I think I've done it on one cache, but yet you had to learn the process of projecting a waypoint, and I thought it was a good thing to know.
Yeah, it's nice. Before, people had to use those other tools, like GC Toolbox or something like that. You had to flip back to another app, so it's nice to have right in Cachly.
Exactly. And you also have new search options. I mean, as if you didn't have enough search options to begin with in Cachly. It's one of the best tools to be able to find something quickly. Out of a list of nearby geocaches, I think Cachly's far better than even going to the website. But now you've made it even more useful.
Yeah, so we added a way to limit it by like a state or a country. So if you just want to search in Washington State for traditionals, it'll just limit that search there. Maybe you live on a border and you just want to, do only your state. Or I even used it to be curious about countries. I searched for Afghanistan to see how many caches were in Afghanistan, and there was only 6. But it was still pretty cool to just find all the caches in an entire country. So
exactly, and of course it will map those, right?
Yes.
Well, and I think all of those Afghanistan caches are on military bases.
They could be.
I seem to remember talk about the military personnel placing those caches for their own entertainment.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, and there's been events on those bases as well. And can't remember who it was, but I talked with someone who had actually done a couple of those events for the flash mobs and that kind of stuff. I thought that was kind of weird that you have it on a base so that you can't get in unless you have military clearance.
Yeah, no kidding.
Isn't that against the rules? Shouldn't an event be open for everyone?
I think they make an exception because of the security issues around it.
Got it.
So, you can kind of understand some of that. There's a couple more changes to the coordinates that have changed, and you now can do the direct input of the coordinates to create new waypoints. And there's also a new coordinate parser, which is what I really like, so that I can actually copy and paste the chords off of notes and whatnot a lot easier.
Yeah, so previously we didn't have the text input field to create a waypoint, so that makes it a lot quicker. Like you're saying, you can copy and paste and then create a waypoint real quick. But we also used to use an Apple API on the iPhone for taking a coordinate and then finding a location on Earth. And so number one, it didn't work when you were offline because it actually made a network request, which was a huge pain. And then also Apple changed something and it actually broke for a long time. So people would put in a coordinate and just a normal coordinate, and things like a comma or a space would just completely screw it up, and then they would be thrown to the ocean or something. So completely rewrote the coordinate parser, and now it basically takes any coordinate format that you can think of, strange ones with commas, spaces, stuff like that, and it will find it. So completely revamped that and works so much better.
Well, and there's also a usage screen now to help people with well, not just with smaller phones, but especially those with less storage space on their phones.
Yeah, so I would get users saying, Cachly's taking up a gig of my space, and they would maybe show me a screenshot of the iOS settings app, taking up a gig, and I didn't know exactly what it could be. It could be offline maps, probably, because those are really big. But now they can look, in the user screen on Cachly and see exactly if it's images, if it's the database, if it's offline maps, and then they can actually just kind of bulk delete all the images or offline maps from that screen there as well. So, and then it also shows API usage, since there is limitations for those. Premium users get 6,000 caches that they can view each day. So you can see those limits, see how much you've used, especially if you're using offline lists and refreshing a massive list of thousands of caches. You probably want to be mindful of how many you've used for the day. So, or else you'll run out.
Well, and driving, if you're constantly refreshing, takes a lot of those calls.
Yep, there you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Luckily,
the map loading uses the light caches, so you get 10,000 of those a day, just loading on the map. But if you're actually downloading all the details, logs, description, stuff like that, you get 6,000.
Yeah, and with other apps, like a lot of the apps on Android have the live maps where it just constantly goes. And I've heard a lot of people having issues where they're maxing out their API calls as they're driving for an entire day. Somewhere around the 8 to 10 hour mark seems to be the limit that they can't load any more caches.
Yeah, so that's the main reason I haven't implemented that. It's not that we couldn't do it, but it's kind of the limitation of the API that I feel like it would give a bad user experience. So, and it's not just using them all up. You might use up all your, 30 network requests per 60 seconds is what you can do. But if you're scrolling your map around and continue to move it a bunch, you might hit that, 30 network requests real quick. So
sure. Well, I still like to do the caches along a route and put all those offline, not just because of the API calls, but also for performance, because you don't know what your connectivity is going to be like in that area. Yep. And even if you have connectivity, but you have made a bunch of improvements too to the offline stuff, including some basic performance stuff.
Yeah. So in the previous version of Cachly, everything was saved in the database in a different way. Our offline lists were kind of by themselves. If you had a cache that was the same in 2 different lists, we would download that data twice and they wouldn't be associated. So if you refresh the logs on one of them and went into the other list, those logs on the other one wouldn't be updated. So now Cachly uses a universal database. So there's only one cache saved in the database for a GC code. You can link that into as many different lists as you want. If you download that from the live map, it won't create another record. It will find that record in the database and just link that into your list. And now with the new database format, you can add many, many caches. I think I've tested over 50,000 caches in an offline list. So I don't know why you'd want more than that, but hey, if you want to, it's probably possible. It might take a little longer to load that many from the database, but that's why we added clustering, which is the next thing on the list. Because if you're wanting to show 50,000 caches on a map on your iPhone, you're going to crash your phone. So that's why we had to add clustering. People hate clustering, but if you really want to turn it off, you can in settings, and you can adjust lots of different parameters about when they start clustering and how many the minimum amount of caches is to make clustering happen and stuff like that. So I wanted to give people a lot of control for those people that really hated the clustering. So,
and also you've added some more list filtering as well.
Yeah, so that was new in 3.0. And so you can do, let me see the list here. You can filter an offline list by tons of different parameters. So things like archived, different attributes. You can choose multiple attributes and it will filter your lists by those attributes. The cache note, so you can, look at the text from a cache note and do text matching for if it starts with this text, if it ends with this text, if it contains this text, if it doesn't contain this text, things like that. Cache type, if it's your cache, container size, country, description, difficulty, favorites, found, GC code. There's a bunch of them. So, and then you can stack all these different filters on top of each other, and it will do. It'll match them and say if this filter is valid and this filter is valid and this filter is valid, then we would show those caches. So you can make it pretty complicated, and you can turn off some of the filters that you've already created just quickly. So I try to give a lot of tools for people who were kind of like power users and wanted to filter out those caches. So.
Oh, I like that. I was just playing with it. I'm thinking, well, the more filters you put in, the fewer results you're going to get.
Yes.
Right. Every time you put in a filter, you're filtering out results, but being able to turn them on and off as you need them, that is very powerful.
Yeah, and that was a user suggestion. That was something that I hadn't thought of, but I had a couple users who, wanted to quickly turn them on and off instead of deleting them. Because before I just had it where, if you didn't want to use that one right now, you just had to delete it, and then they'd have to add it back again later, which is a real pain.
Right.
So.
Right.
Well, I'll use that just to turn on and off individual features to see where I'm losing the type of cache that I want to find. Because it might be that I know I'm looking for this like series of caches or something like that.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I have it set for that I did find instead of that I didn't find. And, just going through the list, troubleshooting and turning on and off until you get what you want. It's like, oh, yeah, okay, there's where I made the mistake.
Yep.
I find the filter I use the most is turning off all the cache types except event, finding the event, navigating to the event, and then I turn everything back on. But being able to find that event quickly, so I can navigate to it. That's what I seem to do the most with filters, or with it's filters, but it's not this offline filter.
Yeah, and another thing you can do, you can actually delete your filtered results. So, for example, say you had found tons and tons of caches and you wanted those gone from your list. So you could filter out all the founds and it would only show those. And then you can choose the option to delete all your filtered caches. And then you can turn your filters back off and then it would show all the caches you haven't found. So you can use it in a lot of different ways.
I actually did something like that not long ago. I went and created 2 different offline lists from the same GPX file. And then went and deleted the caches that I knew I did not want to find, but still wanted them in there, the secondary caches, the if I have time caches, so that I had my primary target caches, which I had highlighted, and then I deleted everything that was not highlighted.
Got it. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Now, another performance one that you've implemented now is the option to not search for caches when you first launched the app.
Yeah, so there was a feature that Cachely always had where you launch the app and then it finds your current location and then it loads caches for there, which I always thought was a helpful feature, especially for people that are traveling and they don't know what's around them. But some people who are continually opening the app and starting it and stuff, that was annoying. So just a quick way to turn those off so it's not also taking another network request. So.
Well, and if you're using it as your primary interface to geocaching, you open it up to see what caches you're going to hit like this weekend. What are the caches that I want to target? So it's nice to not have to wait for that so that you can open it up, scroll right to where you want to go and start searching there.
Yep. And it's a feature it's in settings, so you can turn it on, turn it off. If you're a casual cacher and you're in a new place, you can turn it on and let them load. So.
Yeah, and turn it on and off as needed, like I've done a couple of times.
There you go.
And also an option to download the offline images. That's very, very handy for when you're outside of cell phone range.
Yeah, so we've always had that feature for, when you're saving caches from the live map, say you're saving 50 of them, you can download all those images, or from a GPX file, you can download all the images at that time. But if you just want to not download any and just cherry pick, 1 or 2 caches, you can go to the photos screen of those offline caches and then just download just those images for that cache. So I've used that quite a few times where I just have a couple caches where I'm going to see camping or something like that, and I only want to download those images, and then you can use that new feature. So
yeah, so when you're on like a slow connection, you don't have it downloading everything by default.
Yes,
you can go to the 1 or 2 caches that you need, like that puzzle cache where you need the photos to go and solve it. Download that one, download whichever other one you need, and then you still have all your caches cached, just not all of the extra fluff that you might not need.
Exactly. Yeah, because I mean, those photos can take a lot of data. I was testing a GPX file today, and there was about 2,500 images, for about 2,000 caches. So they can fill up space and take a long time, especially on a slow connection.
Right.
Now you've also entered in options for cord.info. The URLs can be entered into search.
Yeah. So a lot of people get the emails, when there's a FTF cache around, or different alerts from geocaching.com. And obviously, when you tap those, that opens their app, which is totally fine, and there's no way to change that. But just another option is to press and hold on that link, and then you can copy the URL and enter that right into Cachely into the search field, and it will load that cache. So
Nice. We've got a question in the Q&A. This is totally off the cuff, so here we go.
okay.
It comes from David Levine. I have a question for you, and if you're interested, any updates coming to the geocaching API that will allow access to features such as watch list support and creating bookmarks?
I don't know, actually. You can create bookmark lists. You just can't delete them. So that's I'm not sure why you can't delete them. But watch list, I'm not sure. It's something that some of my users have wanted, and they had suggested using the URL that the website uses, which is a way to add them. But I'm hesitant to do that because that could be changed later, and then that feature would just break in Cachely because it's not really using the API. So I think those kind of questions is something that I can ask HQ about and see if they are able to respond and let me know about those. So
okay.
Well, and especially with the watch list feature being as old as it is, you kind of expect that they're going to be changing that because, well, they're working on lists right now.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe that's something in the timeline. I'm not sure.
So you've also added that recent logs use smiley or DNF icons. I was just out the other day and I looked and I go, oh, hey, look at that.
Yeah, so that was something from Geosphere. So there's a lot of Geosphere users that came over to Cachely, and that app used, the graphical smileys and frowny faces, which I don't personally prefer. That's why I just did colored dots before, but there was enough people asking for that I made it an option. So it's off by default because I didn't want it to replace what we already had. But if you are inclined to use it, it's in the settings. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
One of my favorite features, and I know it seems silly, is the upside down portrait mode.
Yes, that was requested many times by Gary Slinkard.
And the only reason is I'm in somebody else's car and I've, set my phone down on the center console somehow and I need to charge it.
Yes, that is the main reason for it is people always set it in a cup holder upside down, or their holder for their GPS or something like that needs to go in upside down. So
see, and my problem is I've been trained now that when I turn the phone upside down, the screen blacks out. So I get confused by that. It's another Pokemon thing.
Oh, well.
Don't do that then.
I know. I
thought maybe your phone was something wrong with it or something.
No.
Loose when he turns it upside down.
The trouble is I keep turning that over now, like even in like my pod catcher, expecting it to do that, and it doesn't. It's the battery saver feature on Pokemon Go, which just blacks out the screen and keeps it from going to sleep. Because I have so much stuff going that I keep running into apps getting unloaded.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
So I'm waiting for the next phone so that I have a little bit more memory so it doesn't have to do that to me all the time.
Oh, that's what you said about the last phone, Daryl.
Yes, and I was so upset that they didn't give me more RAM. They still kept it at, I think it's 2 gigs on the iPhone 6, 6S, and 7.
Hopefully they'll bump it to 4 this time.
Hopefully. The Plus is at least at 3 now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I almost got a Plus just for that very reason. And nothing else.
Dual camera, right?
No, the dual camera was interesting, but not interesting enough.
Right.
Among other things, you can't get the lenses to go on top of them, so you can't get that fisheye or the macro. Well, I was gonna say now they're starting to come out, and it's only been what 8 months
Right.
that you started to see those.
Yeah. And from what I see, the next phones, they've stacked the camera lenses instead of having them side by side. So those things won't work for the next one. But don't worry
Exactly.
about that. Just go buy another one. It'll be fine.
Well, but this has been the problem with getting the lenses for the iPhone specifically.
Yes.
Which is nice because it fits on nice and snug, and you don't have to worry about it. But every time you get a new phone, you have to replace that accessory, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, anyway. But getting back to topic, you also have enhanced the exporting of GPX files.
Yeah, so there was a couple things Cashy was missing. We're actually sending a bunch of GSAC like specific type tags, and then if people share those or even import them back into Cashly, it'll send additional data because the regular GPX format doesn't include things like favorite points or even corrected coordinate information. They can contain corrected coordinate information, but Caching never knows that it's a corrected coordinate. It's just at the other coordinate, so there's no way to mark it with the little red triangle. So we're sending a lot of that extra data that can be put into other apps and read and then brought back into Cachly with, to a friend or something like that. So trying to really enhance that. So we're sending as much data as possible.
Then another one is going back to the logging topic. Field
Yes.
notes are now saved as drafts, which I know many people are going to be excited about.
It's basically just a name change is all it really was, because we always had the field notes feature, and then HQ changed that to drafts, and so we tried to follow suit there. So, but the nice feature that actually they did update on the API was the ability to, with a draft, you can send a favorite point, and you can also upload an image, which was not something that was previously possible. They added to their app a little while ago, and then I asked them if, hey, can we get that for third-party developers, and then they actually did it really quickly. So that was a nice feature to be able to add, because before we would just kind of restrict the user from adding those kind of things.
Sure.
So
well, and one of the nice things is with all the improvements on the draft interface, it's now much easier and better to use than it had been as field notes on geocaching, which isn't a Cachly thing.
sure, but yeah, a lot of people use it that way though.
palatable.
They upload those drafts. So
Yeah, well, and now you can actually really use it from the phone. Previously, the field notes were just terrible, and you couldn't do it from the phone if you had any sense at all. You just didn't do it.
Yeah, it was painful.
you talking about on their mobile website if you wanted to finish off the drafts, right?
The problem is they didn't have a mobile version of the field notes.
Yeah.
So now the drafts does the mobile. You've got some of the new edit tools, including I think the mention type thing, where you can actually pick another cacher. I think that actually works in the drafts.
Oh, nice.
Then on the last one of the new features we're going to talk about is just a whole ton of bug fixes and small enhancements, and those I figure probably don't really need much mention here, but just overall, it seems to be a much more responsive app than it used to be.
That's the goal. So that's good to hear that you think that too.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I assume you're doing bug fixes all the time.
Oh yeah. I mean, so since 3.0, we are now on 3.03. So there's been massive amount of bug fixes between all those as well. So.
And then we have a question from Team Mavju talking about third-party developers. Do you know if they are talking about opening up the partner program again? And that's his perennial question, because he wants the developer program opened up so he can get his key.
That I do not know. That would be a question for Geocaching HQ. So I have no more information about that. I mean, they said that it was going to be shut down, and I don't think they ever gave a date or if it would ever open up. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, they just said several years, as I recall, and the announcement that they were shutting it down, which was a quiet announcement to begin with.
Yeah, I think it was it 2014? I think it was something like that.
About right.
I'm sure that Edwin can tell us because he got in a little too late. But we also had a comment from David who says, glad Cachly has kept the standalone needs maintenance and needs archive log types. I go to Cachly even at the computer to log a needs maintenance or needs archive versus the current website approach.
That's good. I appreciate him using Cachly.
And again, if I'm not mistaken, that's something that in the next version of the API might change, because that's something, you're kind of at geocaching.com's control on it.
Yeah, all those log types are log types that they provide us with. Each one has a special ID number. So if, for example, they were deciding to take one away, we would have to remove it from Cachly, and because it wouldn't work to send that request to the server. So they're allowing us to do all the things we do. So if they've taken something away from the website and they're still allowing it for partners, then that's a decision they've actually thought through. So
no, I don't know if you've tried to do a needs maintenance or needs archived on the website. It takes several steps now. It's not just an easy thing to say, hey, the log's full, this one needs maintenance.
Yeah, don't you have to click like report a problem or something like that, and then you can do a needs maintenance?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So coming from the old school of geocaching, I prefer the Cachly method to the current website method. But I consider that I'm a responsible geocacher, and I'm just not going to throw out a needs maintenance and needs archive because I couldn't find it.
I was just going to say there's several cache owners, I'm sure, who are very thankful for the new method on the website because they stopped getting those needs archived logs.
That's true. I have a feeling there's a good reason why they did it.
Yes, I agree. There's probably a good reason.
Yeah, and I seem to recall Scott Burks had a few of those stories that he shared. Going on to new stuff that's coming that we can actually talk about. I've actually seen, I have to admit, and I'm drooling over it already, the new insert template feature that's coming.
Yeah, so that's another one that's been requested for a long time.
And I think finally, only Daryl. Now, he used all his email addresses and all his aliases and kept sending that to you.
Yeah, 50 different ones.
Yeah, exactly.
They weren't all mine. I did, steal people's phones for moments when they were out, in the restroom at the meet and greets.
But yeah, text template is something that we've always had, but there was always only one. And so now we're going to be able to create as many as you want. You name them, you put in your text template, and obviously you can put keywords into that template text. And then another thing I want to take another step further for a feature that I thought was cool would be to auto insert the templates for different log types. And this is optional. But for example, if you wanted to write a certain text template for a found it log and for a DNF, for a note, something like that, and then you build those in Cachly, and then when you're actually creating a log with those different log types, it just inserts that text in automatically instead of having to choose one of the templates. So that's just an option. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to. If you want to just create a bunch of different text templates and then create a log, and just you can press and hold in the message area and then insert a new template, or from the little options menu up on the top right, same kind of menu. And it'll show you a whole list of templates you've created, and then you'll just insert that text in. So really, it's kind of a multi-use tool for however you want to use it. So that'll be coming in 3.1.
Well, the keywords are a big thing that a lot of people don't know about, and maybe you can talk a little bit about that too, which ones are available. But I really love having these just insert these templates, because one of the things I love to do was put the links to my friends' profiles that I'm out caching with. Yep. So I'd have just a whole series of names back in Geosphere. And all it is you go, it'd be like GC : and then I'd have the GC name, so that I have those available and just drop them in for each different person I'm caching with. And I'd have like group ones too. So it's, out with, these people that I usually go caching with. And it was just quick, easy drop in there. And of course, then like you're talking about with the different cache types or find types. So, I was out caching with these people, but we didn't find it. The event types, that kind of stuff. So I'm really excited to have this one back. But going to the keywords, what are some of those keywords that can be used?
They're the same keywords we've always had. Let me see here. But maybe for some users, they've been hidden and people haven't known that they're there. Let me see here. So a lot of them are date keywords. Let's see.
I think you have find number is one of them.
Yeah, find numbers, cache name, cache code, different formats of dates, different formats of times, the owner name, user find count, user hide count, and then your username. So that's the kind of keywords we have so far. So,
well, I don't think it has the find number for the day. Am I correct in
no,
not for the day?
That's not something we currently keep track of, but it's a feature request that we have written down. So,
yeah, that would be one I'd love to have. And for that matter,
how would that fill that out? You couldn't do it ahead of time. You couldn't say, because it would be cache 1 of 1, cache 2 of 2, cache 3 of 3 as you're going along.
Right. Well, and what Geosphere did, and I had to correct many times, is it would calculate that as you submitted it. So one of the problems that I'd have is, oops, I double log this one, or I skipped this one, and I have to go and correct all of the ones after it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the current finds one is actually a tough one because there's people that save pending logs. They submit them as drafts. They might delete some of the pending logs. So the calculations for getting that current finds keyword correct has been tough, and there's been bugs with it. And so continuing to make sure that one is working correctly.
Well, I will continue to cross my fingers that that's going to come out, because almost everything that I've been wanting has come out in Cachely, or will be coming out shortly, like the insert text template.
Well, good. Well, send me the rest of the list then.
That's the problem, is I have to remember what they are now.
Well, you need to reach out through Bluetooth to other people using Cachely on their phones around you to request their usernames. So whenever you do a log, it immediately goes out to everyone around you and says, oh yeah, I found this with these people.
There you go. That's a great feature.
See how quick and easy that would be?
That would be wonderful.
Well, there is actually something, I think, in the gaming API that does look out. So if anyone else had Cachely open, maybe that would be a possibility.
Maybe. I have to look into that.
Kind of scary.
Yeah.
That would be so incredibly cool.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you could do the conditional logs.
And it pulls everyone.
Well, yeah, but you have your conditional logs, hey, it was out caching with, whenever it sees the more than 2 other Cacheleys. Oh, man.
Yeah, you probably could do that with Game Center, but I think it would have to do with their Game Center username instead of their geocaching username. I don't know.
Well, but you could probably pull something up from because I'm remembering something about 3 years ago where Game Center would actually talk over Bluetooth to any of your friends.
Yes, and I remember that because I was going to work on a scavenger hunt game that involved Bluetooth and communicating with friends and seeing them all on the map and stuff like that. So I remember that as well.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that you could do something like that, but you'd have to still, somehow remember their caching name tied to their Game Center ID.
Yeah, well, it gets tricky.
Yeah, but oh boy, would that be fun.
That would be pretty cool.
That would make my life so much easier.
Or would it?
And it would make Nick's life so much harder.
Exactly.
It would.
Because and imagine how nasty that would be if you didn't actually have to be friends in Game Center. How nasty that would be at the mega event.
Oh,
that long line of cachers waiting to find the cache. You just got the first 30 people in line.
I don't even know these people. Did I see them?
Well, that would be even cooler yet. Okay, but before we get into too much more trouble, Nick, thanks so much for joining us. How can people find more on Cachely?
You can go to cachely.com or catch us on Twitter. It's at Cachely app, or just search for Cachely on Facebook, and you can find us there.
Nice.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
Well, August 22nd is going to be a big day. And one of them is that on the 22nd, you'll actually be able to go over to geocaching.com and request the Magic the Gathering tags. Now, there's only going to be about 1,500 of these things available, but we do have some of those that we're going to be giving out to our audience. And the way that you're going to get that is you have to send us a comment that we can use on the randomized show 300. Episode 300 is coming up, as we mentioned before. So if you send us email, and you know what, if you're sending us audio, it's much more likely to be used. So if you send us the audio in the email, you're going to be at a better probability of being on the show. And any of those that get into the show for 300, you're going to be in the drawing to get one of the 5 of the Magic the Gathering tags that we're going to give away. But you know what I'm going to do right now is actually read out the one that I have here. So if you want to discover it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. If you want to discover it, it's MG5G3D. That's MG. It's not 3D, and I haven't even done 360 on this yet.
Okay,
but it's MG5G3D. So you can go ahead and discover it if you are so inclined, and make sure to send something in for that 300th episode to get the tag yourself, hopefully. But that's not all that's happening on the 22nd. You know what else is happening on the 22nd, Chris?
End of the world.
Oh, it might be.
It's the day after the eclipse. I mean, the eclipse is going to be the end of the world, isn't it?
It's only going to be the end of America.
No.
It's only the end of America.
Oh, okay.
The rest of the world is fine.
Canada will carry on.
Exactly. Well, some bits of Canada might be going away, but Canada will be mostly fine. And same with Mexico. But we have a patron hangout that's going to be on the 22nd. So patrons, mark your calendar for 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific for that August 22nd patron hangout.
You better believe it. And soon after that August 22nd patron hangout, we're going to have an August 24th show, and we're going to talk Going Caching 2017 with Andy and Jim. August 31st, we're going to do a randomized LX. It's kind of hard to put that. Maybe it's Lux, like in D-Lux. September 7th, we're doing Geo Live 8.0. That is an Android geocaching app. September 14th, we're doing GPS Tech number 3 with our buddy Limax.
So check the Cachemaniacs website at cachemaniacs.com for more of the GeoGearHeads, including show notes for this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by emailing geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniacs shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniacs shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Hoffenauer and Daryl Wanberg. This show is copyright 2017 by Daryl Wanberg. All rights reserved.
Cash with the Cachemaniacs.